find a way to get your physiology in a place where you are yourself. The thing about getting your physiology in the right place, right, if you did one thing and nothing else, so it's the same with preparing for an exam, it would be to breathe rhythmically before you go in.
Okay.
Right? Because the number one thing about the stress response, it's the brainstem, the fight or flight, is triggered by your heart rate, right? And it's not that your heart rate is high or low. So it's not that it's 120 beats a minute. And this gets a bit technical. It's whether it's in a rhythmical sine wave or not,
okay.
right? It's whether it's whether it is a coherent heartbeat. And when you're frightened, it's not coherent. It's incoherent. It's going right? And there's a brilliant line in the stress research that says that's why stress makes you stupid. It gives you a frontal lobotomy.
Yeah.
So at the very moment you've got to be lucid and good and confident and remember your stuff, you can't. My humble opinion, you can't vision your way into calming your heart rate down, but you can breathe your way into it. And breathing rhythmically just means breathe in, breathe out. Concentrating on something else kind of makes you forget to be negative. And rhythmical breathing just brings the heart rate into a sine wave. And that turns your brain back on. Good question. Two things. There's always a set of criteria. Let's say we've got a job and it's a graduate in the marketing department. That's the job. If I'm doing my job properly, I work with the boss of that department and I say, what are the 4 or 5 things this person's got to have? And they've got to be creative, but they've got to be able to plan. They've got to get on with the team, so they've got to be able to collaborate. So our words would be collaborative, creative, planning, a couple of others. What the assessment centre then does is design exercises around those things. So the classic creativity one is you give someone a brick, right? Hand them a house brick and you say, I want as many ideas as you've got for what you do with that house brick.
Okay.
Right? And the obvious one is build a house with it.
Yeah.
But the others are use it as a paperweight. You're a cat burglar, chuck it through the window, whatever. And creative people just go, bloop.
Yeah.
What they normally are then things like there'll be in-tray exercises where, you know, the only way to get through the exercise is to plan your way through it. Okay. There might be a presentation. And what will normally happen is when you do your notes to prepare, they collect your notes in, they just see, are you neat and tidy? Right? The bit you have to remember at an assessment centre, without freaking out, right, is that you are on show 100% of the time.
Okay.
Right? So I'll never forget, when I got the Fujitsu job, it was at an assessment centre near Heathrow Airport. There was a team exercise. I walked into the room, I bumped into the table and I knocked the bottle of water over and it went everywhere, right? Nightmare. Now I will have been watched for how I reacted to that.
Yeah.
Did it crush me or did I have a bit of a laugh about it? Yeah. And luckily, I helped people and oh my God, but that said something about me.
Yeah.
So you are on show and being watched all the time. That's point one. Point two is, because of that, you've got to demonstrate stuff. So the really, really, really big one is you can't think it, you've got to do it.
Yeah.
So let's say so for the collaboration, there'd be a team exercise. And the exercises are things like debate the modern health service and come up with 5 ideas for what to do about it. So that tests collaboration.
Okay.
It tests creativity. So I'm now an assessor. I write down what you say, the way that you say it, your body language, that's what I write down. So the 2-stage process for an assessor is collect evidence against the criteria and then score it. Okay. And then at the end of the day, we all come together and there's a great big whiteboard with your name on it and the candidate's name and a big matrix by exercise, and we just fill it in. And then it's not just the one with the best score that gets the job, but pretty close to that. Yeah. And then the assessors just sit around and have a conversation, and that's how it works. Most assessment centres will avoid edgy things like religion, typically. because they can go horribly wrong. But it could be anything. It really could. It could be you've got £1 million to spend on refurbishing a new school. Where should you spend it? That's not the point.
Yeah.
There tends not to be a right or wrong answer. What the assessors are looking for, like I said, is what you say and how you say it. They're looking for listening skills. So how do you prove listening? You kind of do it the way you're doing it now. You catch me in the eye, you nod when I say something, you say uh-huh. The very best way to demonstrate listening is then to reflect back what I've just said. So someone's just said something over there who you're in competition with because they're on the assessment centre, and they say, I think we should spend £500,000 on new toilets. And you might just say, you wouldn't say this, but it's like, what I've heard you just say is you should spend half of it on toilets. Is that right? You've demonstrated listening. What often happens is you sit there and you hear that comment and you process it and you don't say anything. And that's okay as well, but I can't prove that. When I'm assessing you, I don't know whether you've heard that or not, right? Because what I'm looking for from you is collaboration. I'm looking for what you do and how you say it that brings other people in. So if there's 6 of you and 3 of them have spoken, but Sue over there hasn't said anything, you might turn to Sue and say, Sue, what do you think? I then write that down. Literally, Chloe invited Sue into the, right? Tick.
Yeah.
That proves collaboration.
Yeah.
What often happens is you're sitting there going, well, why isn't Sue saying anything?
Yeah.
I can't score you on that because I can't read your mind. So you have to look like you're doing things, you have to look like you're listening, and you have to say things.
Is it all right to say to your group, for example, I don't actually know very much about this. Could any of you explain? Is that okay? Is that helpful?
Yeah, it is. But you've got to say it. Right, to my earlier point, you can't just think it. You've got to say it. So let's use that as a really good example. If you said that, what has that proven about you in that moment?
I suppose that you're not afraid to ask questions.
Yeah. A bit of vulnerability.
Yeah.
That was quite a vulnerable thing to do. You didn't have to say that. Now, if you didn't say it, you'd still be a great person, but I can't score it.
Yeah.
Right? So the process is collect evidence. The exercise finishes. You then leave, and I sit down and I score it out of 5. And 5 is, evidence of great strength, down to 1, which is evidence of weakness, and a 0 is often, didn't collect any evidence, but that's bad, typically. So just clarifying. Look, I don't know much about NASA.
Yeah. Does
anybody? But the exercises are nearly always generic enough. 2 big things you can do. One is you kind of lead it generically. So it could be things like, let's clarify what we've got to do. We've got 45 minutes. What's the outcome? You don't need to know anything about NASA to help the team get to a result. You can do things like, have we heard from everybody? Don't have to know anything about NASA for that.
That's true.
The big tip, I was at an assessment centre in Manchester last year, and it was just brilliant. We had these people in the room. And there's nearly always a flip chart in the room or a whiteboard. And the groups always, or nearly always, struggle just to remember what they've been discussing.
Yeah.
So jump up and own the flip chart.
Yeah.
Right? And I sat there, and I nearly had to say something. I nearly shouted out, why isn't someone owning the flip chart?
Yeah.
See, if you go back to what I said earlier, if you've dropped your nerves to a point that you're really in the thing, that's what you might do anyway.
Okay.
Right? If you haven't released your nerves, you're sitting there going, oh, what am I supposed to be doing?
Yeah.
Your brain's thinking too much. Your heart would be saying, well, I'm a bit confused here. Right? In coaching terms, the process is called naming it. Name how you're feeling. Right? So if it's, I'm a bit confused, there's lots of ideas. Naming it would be, I'm a bit confused. Okay, what do we need? Well, we just need to see it. So you might, I'll just jump up and draw it then. So long as you don't sit there and go, you're an idiot, and you're an idiot, that's probably not the way to do it. But it's just naming, look, I think we're a bit confused, folks, and we've only got 10 minutes left, so right, coordination. My other thought would be, don't get fixated on leadership.
Okay.
Because when you think about it, if there's one group, there's only one person that can lead it. So you can lead from the front, you can lead from the back, you can sit in the back and just watch, but you've somehow got to show that you're watching, and that then you make an intervention and you can lead from the middle. Someone else might be saying a lot, but you jump up and own the whiteboard. You're then leading that bit of it.
That part, yeah.
And if it's for HR, an HR assessment centre, they're not just looking for leadership, they're looking for people that care about others. So what are you going to say that proves that you care about others? You know, it's that the millionth time I've said this, and it's easy to say and difficult to do. Enjoy it.
Okay.
Get into it. Just be it. The more you're having to think about it, it's not the worse you do, just the harder it is. Because you're taking too much processing power up by trying to figure out what you're supposed to be.